Okay, I may be giving this whole thing away, but I might as well say it. This is one of those rare occasions where I actually prefer the rip-off game over the game it is ripping off in the first place. Take that for what it's worth, but yeah. Super Jagger Bomb. Released in 2022 for Nintendo Switch courtesy of East Asia Soft Limited, Chibi Soft Games, and I could pretty much sum up this whole thing in less than a minute. You ever play a game called Bomb Jack where you control a little superhero guy and have to collect all the bombs while avoiding all the critters? If the answer is yes, then congratulations, you've also played Super Jagger Bomb, which is an unapologetic copy of Bomb Jack with more modernish graphics and a much cheaper price point. End of review, cue the end card. I guess we'll keep going. Coincidentally, Bomb Jack is part of Hamster's Arcade Archives lineup that has been available for Switch since 2019, so why offer a lesser version of a game that was already available unless you had something extra to offer, which, spoiler alert, Super Jagger Bomb does not. Well, it has a training mode if you want to count that, and achievements, but I don't really count that shit. So much like its inspiration, Super Jagger Bomb charges you with collecting all the bombs on screen to clear the stage and move on to the next. If you collect all the lit bombs in order, you get an extra bonus, points and stuff. Speaking of which, every so a power-up will appear that will transform all the enemies on screen into coins that you could collect for bonus points. There's a meter that fills up as you collect bombs, and all that does is really summon said power-up when it's full, so it's really just filling space on screen that doesn't need to be filled. You don't need that meter. You didn't have this meter in Bomb Jack, so this is extraneous information that you don't really need. You've got some achievements. Yet there's a training mode that lets you practice any of the game's 100 rounds. It's a single-player game, nothing special, I suppose. And look, I'm not going to completely poo-poo on Super Jagger Bomb because it's a rip-off game. As far as rip-off games are concerned, Super Jagger Bomb is competently executed if nothing else. It plays like Bomb Jack does somewhat. The various screen layouts are practically the same as in the arcade original, so if you're familiar with that game, you should jump into this one with no problems because both games play pretty much similarly to each other. Now, I will give Super Jagger Bomb credit on one thing, however. Control over your bomb rip-off guy, Bomb Jack dude, whatever you want to call him, is actually much smoother than the original Bomb Jack, which often felt somewhat stiff at times. Here it's actually quite nice, and you even have a little counter that pops up as to how many times you could slow your descent before crashing down. Yeah, but it's a Bomb Jack clone. That's done well enough, and there's slight improvement in control, so that's something of a step up, which is actually a bit of a surprise if I'm being honest here. I was expecting something a little worse, but we got something comparable at least, so as far as a ripoff is concerned, that's impressive for whatever that's worth. So it's a 2.5D remake ripoff of Bomb Jack, obviously, replacing the cute little pixel characters and scenery with drab, ugly 3D rendered equivalents. The best you could say about the visuals is that they at least look the part in replicating all the caricatures of the official title, but given the choice between this and the charming 2D visuals of the arcade game, it's not much of a hard choice for me to make, especially when it comes to the nighttime rounds where some of the enemies tend to blend in with the background, making them much harder to see and pay attention to. That can be a bit annoying at times, but the game has a small collection of stock-sounding pseudo 8-bit music that feels like something ripped from a stock 8-bit music collection. It's not particularly great stuff, it's just there. You could turn it off if you want, but it really doesn't make much of a difference. The sound effects are also minimal, also nothing special. Again, it's just there. Not much else to say in that regard. Overall, Super Jagger Bomb is look, it's an imitation of a somewhat mediocre arcade game, and one that plays well enough, I suppose. Faithful to the source material that it's aping, controls just fine, nothing to really complain about here. It's just a cheaper, bargain basement version of Bomb Jack that holds its own. Probably the best I could say about it, but if you already have Bomb Jack in your digital library, then you really don't need this. It's pretty much the same game. Otherwise, it's a cheaper alternative to the much pricier arcade original. And it also got a sequel earlier this year, so it must have done something right, so I don't know. I guess it's worth a shot. Your mileage may vary.